Ghostbusters wasn't just an 80s comedy, it blended improv, experimental effects, and real-world risk-taking into something groundbreaking. The proton packs were bulky, built from real hardware, shaping how actors moved. These are 18 hidden details you completely missed in Ghostbusters. Number 18. Dan Aykroyd didn't just write Ghostbusters as a comedy, he conceived it rooted in his family's spiritualist history. His great-grandfather was a renowned psychic investigator in Canada, and Aykroyd grew up surrounded by seance records and ectoplasm research. The original 1981 script featured the team traveling through time and alternate dimensions, battling supernatural threats across history. Columbia Pictures read it and panicked. The budget would have exceeded $200 million in 1980s dollars. Producer Ivan Reitman convinced Aykroyd to ground the story in present-day New York, cutting interdimensional travel for ghost-catching entrepreneurship. Harold Ramis joined the rewrite, transforming the mystical epic into a screwball comedy with scientific flavor, but Aykroyd's spiritualist roots still permeate the film's DNA throughout. Number 17. Early drafts didn't call the film Ghostbusters. Aykroyd's working title was Ghost Smashers, emphasizing action over the pest control business angle that made the final cut. Legal concerns forced the change. A 1975 children's show called The Ghostbusters already existed, owned by Filmation. Columbia's lawyers negotiated rights to the name, paying an undisclosed sum. Some early promotional artwork from test screenings in February 1984 still used alternate typography, hedging bets in case legal issues resurfaced. The iconic logo, a ghost trapped in a red prohibition symbol, was designed by Michael C. Gruss specifically after the title was finalized. That logo became so recognizable it now appears in the film itself, printed on equipment before they've even chosen a company name. Number 16. Bill Murray was Ivan Reitman's only choice. But for Peter Venkman, but Murray vanished for months during pre-production, traveling in Europe with no forwarding contact. Reitman sent scripts to his apartment, his agent, even his family with no response. Desperate, Columbia drew up contingency lists including Chevy Chase for Venkman, Tom Hanks for Ray, and Michael Keaton for Egon. Production was nearly greenlit with John Candy as Louis Tully, except Candy wanted to play Louis with a German accent and 2 pet dogs. Reitman rejected the idea, and Rick Moranis stepped in, improvising the character's nerdy accountant persona. Murray finally resurfaced 6 weeks before shooting, agreeing to star without reading the final script. That last-minute commitment shaped everything. Number 15. Winston Zedore was originally a central character, appearing in the first act and joining the team as a fellow scientist and equal partner. Eddie Murphy was offered the role in early 1983 and loved the script, but chose to star in Beverly Hills Copy, instead chasing a bigger paycheck and lead billing. After Murphy declined, the part was rewritten, delaying Winston's entrance until the second act and repositioning him as a working-class everyman skeptic rather than a scientist. Ernie Hudson auditioned with this reduced version and later expressed disappointment in interviews, saying Winston lost narrative weight. On the DVD commentary, Reitman acknowledged the change was a compromise driven by budget and schedule. Hudson's performance still grounds the team with authentic realism. Number 14. Bill Murray improvised extensively throughout production, often abandoning the script entirely during takes. Harold Ramis confirmed that roughly 70% of Murray's dialogue was created spontaneously on set, forcing editors to choose between scripted coverage and Murray's unpredictable alternatives. The apartment scene where Venkman visits Dana Barrett, including the refrigerator inspection, was unscripted improvisation. Murray's celebration line, "We came, we saw, we kicked its ass," never appeared in any draft. During the Firehouse discussion, Murray delivered the ESP questions in one rapid breath as a personal challenge. Ivan Reitman instructed cameras to keep rolling during Murray's improvisations, capturing genuine laughter from Dan Aykroyd, Ramis, and Ernie Hudson. Several scenes preserved moments where co-stars broke character, struggling to maintain composure during Murray's unpredictable performance choices. Number 13. Filming in New York City in 1983 was logistically dangerous and expensive. Crime rates were high, street permits were complicated, and union rules forced night shoots to wrap by 5 a.m. Ivan Reitman insisted on authentic locations like Rockefeller Center, Central Park West, and Chinatown because soundstage mock-ups looked fake in camera tests. The montage showing the Ghostbusters' growing fame was shot guerrilla style with a skeleton crew, capturing real pedestrians and traffic. Associate producer Joe Medjuk later told that some sequences were filmed in under 4 hours, with handheld cameras and no permits, relying on speed and apologies. You can see the authenticity in crowd reactions. Those aren't extras, but real New Yorkers watching watching a film crew race through their neighborhood. Number 12. The New York Public Library reading room was available for filming only before 10 a.m., forcing the crew to shoot the opening scene in frantic early morning sessions. But the basement stacks where the team chases the librarian ghost were filmed 3,000 miles away at the Los Angeles Central Library because New York denied access to their archives. Production designer John Belushi matched lighting and shelf design to hide the switch, but close observers noticed differences. The LA library's stacks are narrower and the stone textures don't match. This bicoastal patchwork was invisible to test audiences, so Reitman kept it. The librarian ghost itself was a full-body puppet requiring 6 operators, and overhead rigging to operate throughout the sequence. Number 11. Ecto-1, the team's iconic ambulance, is a real 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor combination car, a vehicle originally designed to serve as both ambulance and hearse. The production team bought it from a private owner for $4,800, then spent an additional $32,000 restoring and retrofitting it with custom rooftop equipment racks, lights, and sirens. Ray's line in the film about needing suspension work, shocks and brakes, and transmission mirrors the actual repair list from the vehicle's real restoration. The prop department built non-functional ghost-catching equipment for the roof using PVC piping, aircraft parts, and surplus electronics. Today, the original vehicle is preserved and displayed at Sony Pictures Studios. Replicas appear at fan conventions, but only one screen-used hero car exists. Number 10. Stay Puft Marshmallow Man wasn't the first choice for Gozer's Destructor form. Early drafts included a giant advertising mascot, but also floated ideas like the Stay Puft Mallow Girl, a Betty Crocker-style character, and even a living Coca-Cola billboard. Dan Aykroyd wanted a callback to 1950s. Americana turned sinister, something wholesome weaponized. The final design came from production illustrator Tom Enriquez, who modeled the character after the Michelin Man and Pillsbury Doughboy. Ivan Reitman chose Stay Puft because the contrast between adorable and apocalyptic was inherently funny. The suit weighed over 60 pounds and was worn by actor Bill Bryan, who could barely see through the head's mesh mouth. Miniature city sets were built at 1:24 scale for destruction scenes. Number 9. Slimer, the green ghost haunting the Sedgwick Hotel, was explicitly designed as a tribute to John Belushi. Dan Aykroyd and Ivan Reitman both worked with Belushi on projects before his 1982 death and wanted to honor his manic, gluttonous energy. Effects artist Steve Johnson confirmed in interviews that Slimer's personality and eating behavior were directly modeled on Belushi's cafeteria scene in Animal House. On set, Aykroyd referred to the ghost as the ghost of John Belushi, and crew members adopted the nickname. The puppet was built from foam latex with radio-controlled facial mechanisms, requiring 3 operators and overhead cable rigging for flight. The iconic moment gorging on room service food was shot in one night with 12 different food props. Number 8. The montages showing the team's rise to fame, including news crews, magazine covers, and talk shows, were shot in a single brutal week with a guerrilla documentary crew capturing real New York City street life. Joe Medjuck later said they had maybe 6 hours total of permitted shooting time across multiple locations. Real pedestrians appear throughout, reacting with confusion or amusement to actors in ghost hunting costumes. Some shots were grabbed so quickly the crew didn't have time to close streets. Larry King's cameo wasn't planned. Producers spotted him outside a CNN office and asked him to film a 30-second reaction shot on the spot. He agreed, improvising his line. This blend of scripted narrative and documentary-style capturing created an authentic texture rare in effects-heavy comedies. Number 7. The Library Ghost, designed by effects artist Steve Johnson and haunting the film's opening sequence, was one of the most expensive single puppets in 1984, costing $35,000 to construct. It featured cable-controlled facial movements, translucent skin layers to suggest ethereal presence, and a full mechanized skeleton rig for the transformation scene. During the first take of her scary face reveal, a critical cable snapped inside the neck mechanism, causing the head to droop grotesquely off camera. Johnson and his team worked through the night to rebuild the neck structure using reinforced fishing line and aircraft wire, delivering a working puppet by the next afternoon. Ivan Reitman delayed the library shoot by 1 day. The final version you see on screen is the emergency rebuild. Number 6. When the team launched their commercial, the phone number shown, 555-2368, was set up as a real working hotline in dozens of US cities during the film's theatrical run. Fans who called heard a recorded message from Bill Murray in character as Venkman or Dan Aykroyd as Ray, thanking them for calling and urging them to see the movie. The hotline received thousands of calls per hour during opening weekend in June 1984, overwhelming local phone systems. Some cities reported switchboard overloads because children called repeatedly to hear the message. Columbia Pictures paid for the service as a promotional promotional stunt, shutting it down after 6 weeks due to cost. Marketing executives later called it one of the most successful pre-digital viral campaigns, generating word of mouth without internet infrastructure. Number 5. Columbia Pictures was deeply nervous about the film's budget. The final cost reached $30 million, massive for a comedy in 1984, when most studio comedies were made for under $10 million. Executives worried that blending improvisational humor with expensive special effects would alienate both comedy fans and sci-fi audiences. Early test screenings were scheduled with unfinished effects where temp animatics and storyboard cards replaced ghost sequences. Yvonne Reitman later said these early screenings nearly killed the project because you can't laugh at a storyboard. But once partial effects were added for a second test in April 1984, audience scores jumped dramatically. The studio greenlit final effects work only 6 weeks before release, forcing effects houses to work 24-hour shifts. Some ghost sequences were still being finalized during the premiere week. Number 4. The ectoplasmic slime covering actors throughout the film wasn't CGI or simple cornstarch goo. It was a custom-designed practical substance mixed on set daily by effects coordinator Chuck Gaspar. The recipe combined food-thickening agents, foam soap, and translucent dye to create a material that moved realistically under camera lights and stuck to skin and clothing without causing allergic reactions. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis were drenched repeatedly in the substance, which was kept refrigerated between takes because it spoiled quickly under hot set lights. Ernie Hudson later joked in interviews that the smell was like rotten yogurt mixed with laundry detergent. The slime's texture gave it weight and real dripping movement, creating tactile behavior impossible to replicate digitally in 1984. Number 3. The theme song wasn't the first choice. Ivan Reitman initially approached Lindsey Buckingham, Huey Lewis, and even the Busboys to compose the title track. Huey Lewis declined, later claiming the final Parker track sounded suspiciously similar to his song I Want a New Drug, a claim that resulted in a 1995 lawsuit settled out of court with confidential terms. Ray Parker, Jr., a session guitarist and producer, composed the track in just 2 days after watching a rough cut. The song's music video, featuring celebrity cameos like Chevy Chase, Irene Cara, and Danny DeVito, became an MTV phenomenon, helping the track reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in August 1984. Columbia later credited the track with adding $20 to $30 million in ticket sales. Number 2. In 2015, the Library of Congress selected Ghostbusters for preservation in the National Film Registry, designating it as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The honor placed it alongside Citizen Kane, Casablanca, and The Godfather as films deemed essential to American cultural heritage. The selection recognized Ghostbusters not just as a comedy blockbuster, but as a landmark in practical effects, improvisation-driven screenwriting, and cross-media branding. Librarian of Congress James Billington noted that the film blended genres in ways that influenced decades of filmmaking. The original 35mm negatives, production artwork, and props are now archived for preservation. The film's legacy extends beyond its 1984 release, generating sequels, cartoons, video games, and a multi-billion-dollar franchise that continues today. Number 1. Ghostbusters fundamentally redefined what a special effects comedy could be. Before 1984, comedies rarely relied on expensive practical effects, creature design, or miniature work. Those tools belonged to science fiction and fantasy. This film proved that audiences would accept comedic characters navigating a world with tangible supernatural effects, as long as the effects supported the humor rather than overwhelming it. The film's success, grossing over $295 million worldwide against a $30 million budget, paved the way for effects-driven comedies like Beetlejuice, Men in Black, and Guardians of the Galaxy. Its influence persists in the balance it struck with proton beams, ghost plumes, interdimensional portals, and a 100-foot Marshmallow Man destroying Midtown Manhattan, all treated with just enough realism to make the jokes land. Ghostbusters broke boundaries by blending comedy with serious special effects work, from Dan Aykroyd's family spiritualist background to Bill Murray's unpredictable improvisations. The film captured lightning in a bottle, real New York locations, practical slime effects, and guerrilla filmmaking techniques created authenticity that still resonates today. Which hidden detail surprised you most, and what film should we open next?